Mr. Nader for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, thank you to our witnesses for joining us here this afternoon. Mr. Shea, in your opening comments, you noted that, quote, you respect the role of Parliament. My concern is, and I don't say this facetiously, that I'm not sure you understand the role of Parliament. You mentioned in your opening comments, or in response to Mr. Barrett, that you're not a legal expert. Neither am I. I'm a farm kid from Logan Township. But when I don't understand something, I seek out experts. So my question to you is, what expertise did you seek out on parliamentary procedure and on the authority of Parliament to send for documents?
I consulted in advance of appearing at this committee our legislative House planning team within the Privy Council office, along with our legal counsel, to refresh my memory on the protocols that are in place for dealing with parliamentary committees, along with the reasons that certain information must be redacted. So I did that consultation.
Did you seek the advice of the parliamentary law clerk?
I did not consult the parliamentary law clerk.
I get the impression, sir, that you don't fully understand, despite the fact that you're an assistant secretary to cabinet, you don't fully understand the authority of Parliament. Parliament's authority to call for papers, to call for documents, is unfettered. You know, you'd mentioned about solicitor-client privilege. Are you aware that Parliament can call for any document that does go against solicitor-client privilege? Are you aware of that?
So again, successive governments have had the same point of view on this, which is that there are exceptions to that must be applied and have been consistently applied for several governments in a row.
Again, sir, do you know what the difference is between government and Parliament?
There's a separation clearly between the different branches of government.
Are you aware that Parliament is supreme in its ability to call for documents? Regardless of what the government says, Parliament has its unfettered access to call for documents.
I respect the role of Parliament, and I absolutely respect its authority. I must at the same time respect the legal opinions that have been provided by the Department of Justice and the time-honored traditions that have gone on between successive governments in terms of how to approach parliamentary document production.
So the rules you're talking about are a government creation. They are not a parliamentary creation, and Parliament's ability is not negated by a creation of government. I would draw your attention to a point made by Mr. Speaker Burkow at Westminster, where he said in relation to the rules that you are now citing, they are perhaps a matter of great importance in the minds of ministers, and in particular, I fancy, in the minds of officials. They are not important in my mind at all. Mr. Chair, I'm really quite flabbergasted that a senior official with Privy Council office would not understand or respect the ultimate authority of this institution to call for papers from an unfettered perspective. I'd like to ask Mr. Bedard, who is our law clerk, can you confirm that Parliament has the ability to call for documents in an unfettered process, even in cases, perhaps drawing on the example from last summer of Hockey Canada, even in cases of directing witnesses to, in some cases, go beyond what might normally be considered protected by solicitor-client privilege?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the questions. As I indicated in my opening remarks, the power to send for documents in paper is rooted in the Constitution, is constitutional in nature, and will prevail over ordinary statute unless there's this explicit provision that would override privilege. Now, in the past, there are examples where there were initial resistance to produce documents. We can think of vaccine contract for the Public Accounts Committee. This is part of the public domain, so that's why I'm providing this as an example. Sir, you mentioned the study that the Heritage Committee was conducting on Hockey Canada. There was some resistance at first about providing documents that were subject to solicitor-client privilege. And after discussion, these documents were provided to the committee. And I will mention that the fact that solicitor-client privilege does not prevail over parliamentary privilege was recently recognized by the Superior Court of Justice in Ontario in the Laurentian University case.
Thank you very much for that great clarity. And I might add as well, for further reading, many of the authorities of Parliament, including Parliamentary Procedure and Practice, Beauchesne's, and other such documents would include much of this information, would they not, sir?
Yes, indeed.
Thank you. And so I would commend to our witnesses reading of the authorities of Parliament on this exact matter. How much time do I have?
That is it, Mr. Nader.
Well, I thank you for your
Thank you,
time,
though.
Mr. Chair.